Hashtag Listen Fam, it's Kelly Hendricks back with another episode of The Theatre. With me today, I have no stranger to me, Mr. Merlyn Schoeman. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. Welcome to Hashtag Listen. Why don't you start off by just telling us give us a brief background of who you are, what you do.
Okay, yeah. As you've heard, my name is Merlyn Schoeman, born and raised in Kimberley. This is my place. And I think I didn't really understand what creativity really is, or that it is even an asset. And over time, I've come to develop that and see value in it, and see the value that it can add to other people's lives, which has actually brought me to this moment now.
Yeah, share with us your journey being a creative and an entrepreneur.
I think it's a journey. It is moments that compound on one another, and I was just reminded of a quote that says that luck is when opportunity meets preparation.
Sure.
And I think like a lot of people, especially in the age that we live in, success seems instant. And really what it is people that have been preparing for a very long time, when no one was listening, when no one was watching. And opportunity came, and now it looks as if you're lucky. It looks as if, he's got it all together. But really it has just been preparation. And I think like for me personally, I think my development really started in the local church for me. It is such a great place, not only to discover creativity, but also for creatives to be sharpened. Because that is mostly what we do. Technically, we market the gospel, right? Whether it's your testimony, whether it's a post, whether it's the way you present a discipleship course, whether it's raising up disciples. Like you learn so much there. And I think also creativity can voice itself very differently with different people. It doesn't mean you have to be an artist. I can't paint to save my life. But I do think like it's in how you write a proposal. It takes a lot of creativity to think out of the box, to persuade someone, to change their mind, to see value in what you are doing. And I think along my journey, I got a qualification in health and safety. But really what it is identifying risks and then working on how to manage those risks. And I think like that is ultimately what creativity is. It is looking for the negatives and seeing how to turn them around for positives, to see where lack is. And really what lack can be seen as is demand. Right? And once you see those risks, that demand or that lack, you can find very creative ways to fulfill it.
Tell me, what was your turning point that inspired you to pursue entrepreneurship alongside your creative endeavors?
I think it was a massive step for myself. I think like there are many people that they've always wanted to be entrepreneurs. To me, I was very happy serving someone. And I think it's a massive step to do it. But I do feel like there are employment or serving a leader, or whether that leader is someone that you really look up to, whether it is your boss, your supervisor, whoever it is. I think it's very important to go through that process. Because if you don't learn stewardship, how to look after someone else's, it's going to be very hard to see the value in looking after your own. For me, the biggest step was you in a community, your working environment, your relationships there, and you step away from it and immediately you feel isolated. Because your employment is where you spend most of your day, right? It's the majority of your day. It's the environment you spend most of the time. And all of a sudden, you're alone. You don't have staff waiting for you. You don't have a office waiting for you,
Sure.
you know, and you have to create all of those things. I think like the problem is that a lot of people think that they're called to business, but really they just have a lack of submission to leadership.
Sure.
They don't want to listen to anyone.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't see the value in being led. And the problem is you're going to go into business and you're going to have to lead people and you're going to discover that they don't follow. And it's really a seed that you've planted.
Sure.
Right? I think like even financial stewardship. Because in employment, it's easy to blame someone else for your income.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, if they just paid me more.
Yeah.
But really the problem is you lack financial management. And now all of a sudden, you're not only responsible for your own income, but you're responsible for sustaining a business, which most of the time also includes staff members.
Sure.
Right? Where you have to put yourself last.
A lot of the time.
Yeah. I think like the first time where I wasn't sure if I could pay staff, like that was intense. I didn't think about myself at all.
Yeah,
And I think like coming back to being in employment and learning to look after someone else's and valuing their assets makes you also value your own once you have it.
Yeah.
And I think like in a nutshell, if you couldn't put yourself last in employment, it's going to be very hard to put yourself last when you're in charge.
Sure, that's crazy. That is a very interesting way of looking at it. Now tell me, Merlyn, how do you define success in your creative and entrepreneurial journey?
I think there's no better feeling than, because what I do is I create digital products. And I think there's no better feeling than the moment when you look at the finished product. When you watch that video over and over, or you get that feedback. And I think the problem is it's very hard to find success in any sphere of creativity. It's because you judge yourself so much, right? Because that judgment is actually what creates. If you were just happy with everything around you, there would be no reason to create
anything. Sure.
Right. And I think some people, if you don't manage that, it's hard to receive success.
Sure.
Because you're always going to look for it. And even when someone affirms you, you'll always feel like, but it wasn't really good.
Yeah.
Like I know, like I've sent away products and I've already been apologetic. When I communicate with them. Like if there's anything you want to change, you know, and they blown out of the water by what you've done for them. And I think like you have to take that time to really accept, as willing as you are to accept the criticism, not only from yourself, but from others, be willing to accept also their words of affirmation.
Yeah. Walk us through your creative process. What drives your creativity, or where do you find inspiration for your work?
Sure, I wish I had like a great answer. I've looked at so many creatives and their path to getting to an end product. And I think it goes back to creative writing at school, right? Everyone used to do the planning because the teacher wants to see the planning.
Yes.
Whether it's a mind map, whether it's a summary of what you're going to do.
Spider diagram.
Exactly, right? And I was always the one that would do it afterward.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
I would just start writing and the story, I would have no idea how it ends. I would have no idea what the middle is.
Okay.
Right? And I would just start writing.
Yeah.
And it would flow. And just to please the teacher.
Because you get marks for that planning.
Yeah, exactly. I would just do that so that I don't miss out on marks.
Sure.
Right? But I think it comes back to constantly going through your world, whether it's a conversation with a friend, whether it's being a guest on a podcast, constantly learning, seeing how things can be done better, and look at people that are worlds ahead of where you are at.
Yeah.
I think we always look for inspiration from our peers, but really to look at the people that's really gone ahead and made a difference.
Sure.
And I do believe that excellence is doing the best with what you have.
Sure.
You know, and I think that creative process is being very particular on how you can better what you are currently doing, the product you are currently giving, looking at flaws or shortages in other service providers, what in their offerings, and finding that, and then that could be your sweet spot.
Yeah.
Right. And I think like that's where the creative journey comes from. It's not a specific task. It is a lifelong journey of really inspecting really everything.
Sure.
Because if you look at it, everything, our world is run by creativity, right? Like, look at this suite, for instance. Like this suite, it looks very simple, but there was a graphic designer that did this.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
There was a creative that had a modeling agency for the textiles that you're wearing right now.
Sure.
Right? Someone shot that. Someone promoted that. There was a shop fitter creatively came in and fit the shop. There was a lighting director. It's all like built by creatives.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think like that's where we fall short as a creative, where you feel like you have no value. I was watching a TikTok and this person said that they asked them what they did and they said, and then the person responded, "Oh, you have a fake job."
Wow.
And she was like, "What?" And she said, "No, don't worry, I also have a fake job."
Sure.
Because we sell air, right? But that woman over there, she's a nurse. She has a real job, right? And I think like sometimes we shortchange ourselves because we think what we do is fake.
Sure.
But it's really, we create the world ultimately.
Yeah.
And a very well-known writer always said like, he doesn't choose to write a book, but he has a file in which he's constantly filing ideas, quotes, books that he's read. And it just says there because he might not want to write a book on why not to procrastinate right now. But maybe in 10 years' time, he's going to want to do that, right? And he keeps that file. Coming back to my previous quote of luck equals opportunity meeting preparation.
Yes.
You are constantly preparing. And so you are constantly preparing to be a success in whatever endeavor you choose to take on.
Sure. And speaking of writers, writers experience a challenge called writer's block. Now, I've worked with you for quite a number of years, and I've seen you in those moments. Take us through, when you face a creative block or creativity block, whatever you want to call it as a graphic designer, where, it's already 12 midday, you need to submit something, or a post needs to go out, but there's no idea. How do you overcome that?
For me, it is really just stepping away.
Sure.
For me, it's just stepping away because being at that desk, being in front of that screen, it's a complete mess. Go and have a conversation. Drink coffee with someone. Turn on a movie, right? I wouldn't suggest social media, but go on to social media in those times, right? Like just distract yourself from it. I think sometimes when that happens, there's so much pressure. Your mind is running at a million miles an hour, but it's not necessarily toward your goal. It's in multiple different directions. And that's why for any creative, I would never charge per hour.
Sure.
Because you shoot yourself in the foot. Because you might have become very good at something, which means you can do it in 15 minutes.
Yeah. Sure.
Something that someone would maybe take a week for, you can accomplish in a week in 15 minutes time. But just to gravitate back to your question, I think what you need to understand is that you could be a social media manager, for instance, and knock out 7 weeks of posts in an hour's time.
Yeah.
Right? And then it could take you 7 hours just to do one again.
Yes.
Right? And I think like you have to push through when the creativity is there. Do as much as you possibly can. So constantly have a list of tasks that you need to fulfill, whether it's for this day, this week, or this month, so that when the spike comes, that you keep on running, so that you rather be ahead a month instead of just focusing on what is at hand right now. Sure. And it's a bad quality, but I think like where people are like, I work well under pressure.
Especially among us creatives.
Yes.
That's usually a phrase that gets used a lot. I need that pressure. And underneath that pressure, you might be able to do the work, but you might not be able to do the work to the best of your ability in
Absolutely.
the time frame. Yeah. So tell me a bit, I want to speak more about entrepreneurship. You know, you recently started another business. Tell me, what are some of the challenges you've had to overcome after stepping out?
I think it was leading. I think like that was the hard thing for me. Even though I've led in the organization that I was employed for, but leading on your own is different.
Yeah.
Because when you are employed and you're in a leadership position, you still lead in service of authority.
Sure.
But all of a sudden, you step into business on your own and you're the leader.
Yeah.
There's no one to blame anymore. there's no one to ask for help, but to say like, I can't do this. This is your problem now. Because I think like so many employees, they tend to shift the blame. I know it's this colleague. Now, if this one only did that, but we were sitting in the same meeting and Kelly didn't do her part. Or no, if management would just do things differently, like there are so many people unhappy in this office, and this is the result. You are that management now, right? There's nobody to blame but you. And it's a huge responsibility, not only in leadership, but it's also about the future of the business, right? And then still, I think another thing was, how do you lead staff?
Yeah.
Because you've always looked at your employer or your manager or your supervisor and you're like, you can do better.
Yeah.
You can do better in these aspects. And I think what you do is you try to be all of those things. And it takes experience, it takes time to find out where you need to be.
Yeah.
I think another thing for me, another challenge for me was overcoming inconsistency. Yeah, I think another challenge is also that dealing with inconsistencies. And when I say inconsistencies, it's not in business, it's not in clients, but it's in your leadership.
Sure.
Right? Because, like I said, I have some experience in like risk management. So I will fine comb everything, look at everything that could possibly go wrong, create the perfect track, and put my train on the track, right? And send the train off. Because I want minimal issues when the train starts going, right? And what I found is when you start off, you can be a very inconsistent leader. You might be very firm on receiving some type of deliverable or having some SOP followed in this month, and the next month you just...
It's okay.
And the reason why it is, there's no assistance for you. And you're lazy that week.
Yeah.
And you're just like, nah, I'm not going to deal with it this week. And what happens is the people that follow you, they're not sure what to expect whenever they meet with you.
Yeah.
Is he going to be mad? Is he going to be loving?
Yeah.
Is he going to come and inspire? Like they have no idea who this person is going to step through the door when we have a meeting.
Yeah.
And I feel like that creates a bad taste in the people who you are leading. I would rather say, to a certain extent, like, be a terrible leader, but be so consistently. Right? Or be a great leader and be so consistently. Right? And I think like that's a very hard thing.
Yeah.
Because once again, you are not accountable to anyone but yourself.
Yeah.
And if you couldn't respect the boss and be accountable to the boss, what makes you think you're going to be accountable to yourself and respect yourself? If you've worked on all of these SOPs, if you've worked on all of these risks and find protocols to manage them, and you expect your staff to do it, but you don't lead by example yourself, like it becomes very, very hard. And I think like it leaves room for distraction and ultimately the failure of whatever project you are busy with.
Yeah. I wanted us to chat a little bit about balance. How do you balance your creativity and also dealing with the sometimes tedious business admin tasks? How do you balance them, and how do you overcome, when the two seems to be fighting against one another?
Yeah, that's a hard one. It's something I struggle with for a very long time. And it's also those lies that you tell yourself, no, I work well under pressure. No, it's cool, I'll get this done.
Yeah.
No, I'm creative, I'll find a way. I think another crutch that a lot of creatives stand on is like, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Sure.
Like, I'll just give it to them. And if they ask a question about that, I am so creative, I'll find some way to persuade them that that was intentional.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? They'll find the flaw and you're like, no, you want me to change that color? I actually left it there for a specific reason. Oh, but like, why is this S not aligned with the rest of the letters? Oh no, it's because of this and that, right? Yeah. And it's those tedious things that sometimes go out of the window. The stuff that logical minds look at. And ultimately, those are the people we're selling to. We aren't selling to other creatives.
Yes.
Right? But what keeps me grounded and what keeps that balance is, for me personally, I found that it's lists. Create a list.
Yeah.
Create exactly what you need to do. Set times. Create schedules for yourself. If you do have administration to do, set a day aside in the week or a day aside in the month.
Yeah.
And stick to it.
Yeah.
And as hard as it feels, as boring as it feels, as mundane as what it feels, and how badly you feel like I should employ someone to get this done, don't do it. Don't shift the responsibility to someone else when you're starting out, because it's a character flaw.
Yeah.
I honestly believe.
Sure.
It's a character flaw,
Yeah.
and you'll always find excuses not to do the hard work,
Yeah.
not to do the boring stuff.
Sure.
I hate finances. I hate numbers. I have no trust in myself with doing simple math. Always pulling a calculator out because I don't trust myself, right? And I've put people in place that manages finances, but I've also realized it's very important for me to increase my financial IQ, right, in order to be a better leader. So I think, like, do the hard stuff, do the studying, read the book. I don't enjoy reading, but I've realized the necessity of it.
Yes.
Right. So I think, like, find the stuff. And then also, I think what aids in that is start doing things, physical things that you don't enjoy.
Yeah, sure.
And I think, like, that will open up your mind and your body to do the hard stuff, the stuff that don't come easy to you.
Yeah. Merlyn started running at some point, but I'll leave that there. You know, I love talking about my running. Who or what has been your greatest influence in your journey as a creative and entrepreneur?
Sure. That's a tight question. And I don't think I'm going to mention any names. But also, because of my very critical thinking, and because of the nature of what I do, I'm very critical in how people do things.
Sure.
Right? And it is not to criticize them, but it is to find solutions to possible problems. Right? And with that said, I have many people I've never met before, and people that's been in my life for a very long time, that I tend to glean from.
Yeah.
And I feel like there are certain people in your life, and they are called destiny relationships.
Sure. They
are imperative to have in your life in order for you to reach your destination, ultimately. And I think, like, we are natural, especially creatives, could be seen as emotional. And I feel like it's very easy to break relationships. And I think it's very important to understand what are destiny relationships, what are relationships that are imperative for you to have in your life in order to reach your destiny, and who is able to leave.
Yeah.
And if you have a concern or an issue with a destiny relationship, fix it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because this is the vehicle that you need to get to where you are going.
Yeah, sure.
So to answer the question, who inspired me and contributed to where I'm at, I think like the greatest creative in my life really, I think, is my dad.
Sure.
He always found creative ways. He was a teacher, principal, and I saw like how he, even when he was older, he wouldn't just teach theory.
Yeah.
He'd sit there and he'll start cutting up stuff at home to make a demonstration so that kids really understood what the crux of the lesson was.
Sure.
Right? Instead of showing you a video of how things would work, how technology works, everyone would get a battery, everyone would get a little motor, even if you have to pay for that himself, right?
Yeah.
He would draw the dissection of flowers if he couldn't find a photo of what he needed.
Sure.
And he would draw it so that everyone understood exactly where it was. Perfect handwriting.
Sure.
I didn't get that at all. But I think like my greatest influence in creativity must definitely be my dad.
Yeah, sure. What advice would you give to creatives, artists who would like to transition into entrepreneurship or business?
I think be very honest with yourself on your why.
Sure.
Why do you want to leave? Are you offended? Because if that's the reason, don't leave now.
Go fix it.
Yeah. Figure out what the problem is. I would also say, find a way to be the best employee you can possibly be. Juggle time and start while you are employed.
Sure.
Because no one's going to pay your bills.
Yeah.
And you are maybe destined for business, but if you do it prematurely or you do it in a way without any strategy, what's going to happen is the business will fail and you'll doubt your ability to be in business.
Yeah.
Right? And it's the same thing like picking off a mango that's not ripe. You're going to bite into it and you're going to have a bad taste of a mango for the rest of your life. But you picked it before it was ready.
Time. Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
And I think like that's sometimes what a lot of people do. They make the side hustle the main hustle.
Too soon.
Yes. And what happens is that the side hustle is not the one paying the bills. Your job is.
Yeah.
Your job's paying for that car installment. Your job's paying for the house, for your groceries.
Yeah.
And you start to neglect your main source of income. And sometimes you get fired.
Yeah.
Because you were a bad employee. Because you didn't make it a priority.
Sure.
So I think like honor where you are at. Learn as much as you possibly can. If you need to start saving finances, don't think that someone's going to pay for it.
Yeah. Sure.
Don't think that some government organization is going to give you a grant and make it happen.
Yeah.
If you do find favor and finances do come, it's a plus. But I would suggest stop buying the clothing.
Sure.
Stop going out, stop the fast food, and start saving that money toward your business.
Sure.
So that there is some surplus financially when you do go across.
Sure.
It's not about your fields when you go into business. It's not about the coffee shop. It is about generating money.
Yeah.
Whatever the purpose for the money is, that's up to you. But ultimately, can this thing sustain itself? And you cannot be a burden to the business. The business is not created for you, for your income, right? Its income is to sustain itself and grow.
Yeah.
And just to conclude the answer, I think for me, people need to understand that talent gets you through the door, but it is character that keeps you in the room.
Sure. Yeah. What are your goals for the next couple of years in your business or even creatively?
I think I've been toying with, do I want to expand my pursuit in digital products, in creativity, or go into transport, or as people call it, logistics sometimes. But I think like logistics is a very big term for a very large transportation company. Sure. But yes, for me right now, I am looking at long-term solutions, and I'm not there yet.
Sure.
I haven't made firm decisions on exactly how the growth will happen, because I believe that if you want to sustain something, you have to plan and research for much longer.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And I think like if you can do something, you can have an idea today, in a month's time implement it, but the truth is it possibly won't last the test of time.
Sure.
And I think even to piggyback on your previous question, as research, do the crappy work that you as a creative does not want to do.
Sure.
And do it as extensively as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also have family members that have done a few postgrads, and a lot of that is research. It's a skill that I do not have to the degree that they do. And I think I glean a lot from them. I ask for their assistance to assist in how to do the market research. What avenues do you take? I've been thinking about this, right? I was actually just on the phone with my brother-in-law as well. And because he's completing his MBA.
Sure.
And we had this very extensive conversation on, because I've seen an opportunity, but I can't figure out how to make it financially sustainable.
Sure.
But it must exist because these businesses exist, right? Yeah. I just haven't figured out how yet.
Yeah.
And I think the research, the theory, the boring stuff is very needed. It's your business plan.
Yeah.
Business plans aren't just there to get funding, but it's a map.
Yeah, it's to sustain the business.
Yes. It also helps you keep on track.
Sure.
And to reach the objectives of the business.
Yes. Merlyn, how can our listeners connect with you and support your creative business and business endeavors?
I think you can find me on Facebook at Graphic Studio. That's GRAVIK Studio, and then also Ride Safe on Facebook. Yeah.
Sure. And what's one key message or lesson you'd like to leave with our listeners about creativity, perseverance, and entrepreneurship?
Consistency.
Sure.
I think stay consistent with the quality of work you give out.
Yeah.
Because ultimately you don't have a business yet, you are the brand.
Sure.
Increase your people skills. Because if you're going to grow a business, you're going to have to impart what you have learned into someone else.
Yeah.
And sometimes people find that very hard to do.
Yeah.
And if you can't teach someone, if you can't grow someone, then it's going to be very hard to grow a business.
Sure.
And I think, so if you are still in employment, try to find ways to deal with conflict management a bit better.
Yeah.
Because you're going to wake up on a bad day and you're going to be the bad boss that you're currently experiencing.
Sure.
Because you haven't dealt with it.
Yeah.
Right? So be consistent in the product that you give. Always be excellent. Always look on a way to be better than your previous self.
Sure.
Be consistently aware wherever you go on processes, on how people do things, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yes.
You don't have to know anything.
Yeah.
You'll never know everything.
The only dumb question is the question that hasn't been asked.
Exactly. Yeah, so I feel like don't be scared to sound stupid.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you so much, Merlyn, for being on the #Listen podcast. It was really a pleasure having you here.
No, thank you so much. It's been a great experience. Thank you for having me.
Great stuff. And that brings us to the end of another episode of The Theatre. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe on YouTube and Facebook. Be sure to share this video with someone you think might need it. And then until next time, The Theatre is signing out. That ending is also not...